What are you doing April 16? River Monsters Lair of Giants. Only on Discovery HD.
We'd just broken camp, a place where we'd been for a few days, and we travelled up quite a long stretch of rapids. We had to have a guide with us who knew the way through, and we negotiated these rapids okay, going upstream, got out of the rapids, and we're clear. We're in open water, we're in a wide stretch of river, and at that point the boats separated a bit, and I became aware that there was nobody behind us, so something's obviously happened. Our boat went back, and the first thing that you're thinking is anybody hurt? Is anybody badly injured or worse in this situation? We did establish very quickly that no, we had a full count of people. We did have 2 people go in the water, 2 crew members.
Everyone's okay, but one boat, there was a collision. One boat was flipped over. It's the main camera. The main camera got under the water somewhere.
I mean, it could have ended worse. And at one point, the cameraman is heading towards the bottom of the river. He looks up, he sees this other boat pass over the top of him. He's holding onto the camera, which actually was his personal camera, and at a certain point he decided he just had to let go of it, otherwise he wouldn't have come up. But luckily he came up after the boat had passed over the top of him. If he'd been on or near the surface where that boat was there, that could have been a very unpleasant incident, much more so than it actually was.
I've been told of a giant catfish called the Lau Lau, and a mysterious beast called the Shippy Too that hooks and drowns fishermen. It's believed to live in this pool and in the rapids a little further upstream. Although I know it's a myth, I can't help but be wary. Get clear of this other line. What my Amerindian guide Stanley described was supernatural. What I have on my line is completely real. Oh. Brian recognizes it straight away. This is the Lau Lau. But I know this fish by a different name. To me, this is a piraiba.
So this is the real monster skinfish, as they call them here, the Lau Lau.
Often when I go somewhere, it is obviously about the fish, but it's also about the journey. And what I was wanting to do here was to experience life as far as possible the same way that the local people do. And the other thing there was, in order to unlock the secrets of the river, I needed to do that through the people. And in order to get their confidence, their trust, I needed to do things their way. So part of that is paddling the dugout canoe. It's something I've done quite a lot before in the Amazon. It's actually something I quite enjoy. I quite enjoy travelling on water. It's quite good having that physical exertion, as long as it doesn't go too far, because if you're not careful in an environment like that, you've actually got no energy left then to put a line in the water. You just want to set your camp and then collapse. But the thing that really does take the energy is when you just run into these obstacles. You run into rapids, and when the water level is high, it's easier to travel, but the fish are more spread out. The water tends to spread into the forest, and so the fish are more spreaded. And when the water level is low, the fish are more concentrated, but the travelling is harder. So these rapids, very often, there's not enough water to paddle, or even if there was, you'd have to paddle at a tremendous rate of knots to get up the rapids. So what you've got to do, you've actually got to drag the canoe through the rapids, or maybe over bare rock.
I've fallen between 2 rollers, which keep the boat from landing on me. Luckily, I avoided a crushed pelvis. I'm not here to slow us down, so I grit my teeth and get on with it.
Right,
This looks slippy. Feels good to have that over with. Yeah, it's a fish on, good fish. In some ridiculous water. And in the dark. Doesn't get much more crazy than this. Oh. It's actually under the boat. Whoa! It's a good-sized wolffish. So here we are, we're moored right below the falls here. Ridiculous water, we're just on the edge of the real push. And then a bit of a slack down there. And you've got to be a fairly serious fish to cope with this water, but look at this. This is what they call a hymara here. Very toothy. Just one more of the monsters living under the water here.
When we're filming in Zambia, in the gorge beneath the Victoria Falls, there was one shot that we wanted, which was going to be from a helicopter. We hired a helicopter for a while to do some aerials, and I was going to be standing on the edge of the gorge, right, so next to a huge drop down to the river, and the helicopter was going to fly along the gorge and would then rise up to meet me and then circle me. So we had this shot planned. And I'm standing there, I'm waiting for the helicopter, and then I see it appear, dip down into the gorge, and then there it is, and it comes up, and it's circling me. And all the time, I'm not supposed to be looking at it, I'm supposed to be just as if I'm there, admiring the river. And when the helicopter is circling me, the downdraft from it is sending branches and all sorts of things, just flying in all directions. And I suddenly had this thought that downdraft from the helicopter is strong enough to hold several tons of metal and 3 people in the air. Maybe that's strong enough to just blow me off the edge here, down into the river hundreds of feet. And so I had this real dilemma. Do I casually try and shuffle a little bit further away from the edge, which is probably going to ruin the shot, or do I stand here and trust that, of course, the pilot and everybody else know what they're doing? So I stayed where I was, but if you look very closely, you'll probably see that I've got a slightly worried expression on my face.
We've come to a deep pool in the river. This feels big. I want to prove to the boys that I know how to handle monsters, but I've no idea what this is. Boil on the surface. I didn't see the fish. What I do know is that whatever I've hooked is too big to fight from the canoe. It's here. Don't you all right to grab the fins? This is what they call a jau. Very, very solid bodied, and they love fast, rocky water like this. This was more or less straight under the boat. This has also got a reputation for being quite an aggressive catfish, grabbing other people's legs and things like that.
What are you doing April 16? River Monsters, Lair of Giants. Only on Discovery HD.